America has always loved building big stadiums. These stadiums are massive bowls of steel and concrete, packed with roaring fans and unforgettable games. But time doesn't spare even the greatest arenas. What was once the center of a city's pride can end up silent, rusting, or demolished. In this video, we're looking at 20 major football stadiums in the USA that will be abandoned by 2025. Let's begin. 20. Houston Astrodome. When the Astrodome opened in 1965, it was called the eighth wonder of the world. It could seat over 67,000 fans for football and even more for concerts. But the shine wore off. The Oilers left for Tennessee, the Astros moved into Minute Maid Park, and the dome was slowly stripped of life. Since 2009, it's been closed to the public. Its seats, field, and scoreboard sit in silence. 19. Aloha Stadium. On Oahu's Halawa Plain, Aloha Stadium was Hawaii's sports crown jewel when it opened in 1975. Seating over 50,000, it became the permanent home of the NFL Pro Bowl from 1980 to 2009. It also hosted the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors and countless concerts. But salt air and humidity are brutal. By the late 2010s, engineers declared the structure unsafe for large crowds. 18. Sam Boyd Stadium. Opened in 1971, it was built in the desert just east of Las Vegas. For decades, it was the only real stadium in town. But Vegas is all about bigger, flashier, and shinier. When Allegiant Stadium opened in 2020, Sam Boyd became obsolete overnight. UNLV moved out. The Raiders moved downtown. Today the seats sit empty, the scoreboard is blank, and the Nevada desert slowly reclaims the grounds. 17. RFK Stadium. Opened in 1961, it was the first stadium built as a true multi-sport arena. Its capacity was over 56,000 for football. But by the 2000s, RFK was outdated and crumbling. The NFL left for FedEx Field, baseball moved to Nationals Park, and soccer shifted to Audi Field. By 2019, the last professional events had ended, and in 2020, the stadium closed for good. 16. Alonzo Herndon Stadium. This stadium opened in 1949 on the campus of Morris Brown College, a historically black college in Atlanta. It once held around 15,000 fans. For decades, it was a hub for HBCU football and local high school games. But when Morris Brown lost its accreditation and fell into financial trouble, by the 2010s, it was already in ruins. Seats ripped out, press box vandalized, weeds cracking through concrete. 15. Miami Marine Stadium. Built in 1963 on Virginia Key, the striking design, with a sweeping cantilevered roof and 6,500 seats, also hosted football exhibitions and special events. Then came Hurricane Andrew in 1992. The city declared it unsafe, and it's been abandoned ever since. For more than 30 years, the stadium has sat empty, covered in graffiti and weeds. Yet, it's a favorite for urban explorers, photographers, and even filmmakers. 14. Pontiac Silverdome. When the Silverdome opened in 1975, it was the biggest stadium in the NFL, over 80,000 seats. But when the Lions left for Ford Field in 2002, the Silverdome began to die. For years, it sat empty. Leaks in the roof tore giant holes. Seats crumbled, and weeds overtook the field. Urban explorers snuck in and filmed eerie scenes of a football cathedral in ruins. Attempts to auction it failed. 13. Giants Stadium. For decades, Giants Stadium ruled the Meadowlands. Opened in 1976 with a capacity of 80,000, it was the home of both the New York Giants and New York Jets. The venue saw playoff classics, Bruce Springsteen marathons, and even World Cup matches in 1994. But in 2010, MetLife Stadium opened right next door. Giants Stadium was closed and demolished that same year. 12. Kingdom. This stadium opened in 1976 as Seattle's big multipurpose dome. It seated around 66,000 and was home to the Seahawks, Mariners, and even the NBA's Supersonics. But by the 1990s, the roof was leaking, chunks of concrete literally fell, and Seattle demanded something better. Safeco Field, CenturyLink Field, and Key Arena took their teams away. In 2000, the Kingdome was imploded in a spectacular blast. 11. Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Nicknamed the Mistake by the Lake, Cleveland Municipal Stadium opened in 1931 with seating for nearly 80,000. It was home to the Browns, the Indians, and countless big events. When packed, it was electric. When empty, it felt like a cavern. The Indians left for Jacobs Field, and Art Modell moved the Browns to Baltimore in 1995, leaving the stadium in limbo. It was demolished in 1996. 10. Veterans Stadium. Opened in 1971, the Vet seated over 65,000 for football and 62,000 for baseball. The Eagles and Phillies both played here for more than 3 decades, and the place became infamous across the NFL. But by the 1990s, its charm had turned into an eyesore. The place felt outdated as new stadiums with luxury boxes opened elsewhere. By 2003, it was closed and demolished in a spectacular implosion. 9. Three Rivers Stadium. Opened in 1970 at the point where Pittsburgh's Three Rivers meet, this 59,000-seat colossus was home to both the Steelers and the Pirates. The Pirates also won 2 World Series there, in 1971 and 1979. By the late 1990s, though, the economics of sports demanded something else. The Pirates wanted a retro ballpark, and the Steelers wanted luxury suites. In 2001, Three Rivers was demolished. 8. Tiger Stadium. Originally opened in 1912 as Navin Field, but later renamed Briggs Stadium and then Tiger Stadium. It seated just over 58,000 for football and baseball. The Detroit Lions played here until 1974, while the Detroit Tigers stayed until 1999. But by the late 20th century, it was outdated. The Lions moved to the Pontiac Silverdome, and the Tigers to Comerica Park. The old stadium sat vacant, slowly decaying. 7. Forbes Field. Opened in 1909, Forbes Field was one of the very first concrete and steel ballparks in America. With a capacity of around 41,000, it was modest compared to modern stadiums. Pitt football played here until 1924 before moving to Pitt Stadium, but the old ground was always tied to football Saturdays too. By the 1970s, Forbes was outdated, and in 1971 it was closed and demolished. 6. Metropolitan Stadium. Built in 1956, the Met started as a modest ballpark for minor league baseball, but grew into a multi-purpose stadium holding over 48,000. Fans still talk about the Ice Bowl conditions that made games almost unplayable. By the late 1970s, the stadium was falling apart. In 1982, both the Twins and Vikings moved to the Metrodome. The old Met sat derelict before being demolished in 1985. 5. Shea Stadium. When Shea Stadium opened in 1964, it was a symbol of modern New York. Seating over 60,000, it became home to the Mets and Jets, and even hosted the Yankees during renovations. But it had character. By the 2000s, though, it was outdated. The Mets got Citi Field, the Jets played across the river in New Jersey, and Shea was demolished in 2009. 4. Candlestick Park. Opened in 1960, the stadium is sitting on the windy shores of San Francisco Bay. With seating for over 69,000, it was home to the Giants baseball team and later the 49ers. The Niners dynasty of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice was built here. By 2000, the Giants had moved to Oracle Park. The 49ers followed in 2014, leaving Candlestick abandoned. It was demolished in 2015. 3. Rubber Bowl. A lesser-known but fascinating case. The Rubber Bowl opened in 1940, built into a hillside with seating for 35,000. It was home to the Akron Zips football program for decades. By the 2000s, it was in decline. The Zips moved to InfoCision Stadium in 2009, leaving the Rubber Bowl empty. In 2018, demolition began, and by 2020 most of the structure was gone. 2. Gator Bowl Stadium. It was built in 1949 along the St. Johns River. The stadium could hold around 82,000 fans at its peak, and for decades it was a go-to spot for football in the region. As the years rolled on, though, the bowl began to show its age. In 1994, the Gator Bowl Stadium was essentially torn down and rebuilt from scratch on the same site. 1. Tulane Stadium. Built in 1926 with an eventual capacity of over 80,000, it was the largest stadium in the South at the time. Tulane University played here, but so did the New Orleans Saints in their first years. The structure was outdated by the 1970s. When the Louisiana Superdome opened in 1975, Tulane Stadium was abandoned. It sat unused for a few years before being demolished in 1980. And there you have it. Stadiums aren't just concrete and seats. They're living memories. For decades, they held our cheers, our heartbreaks, and our history. But nothing lasts forever. As new arenas rise with bigger screens and shinier suites, the old ones fade away, left to weeds, silence, or demolition crews. Thanks for watching. If you love the content, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you in the next one.